Next, dual agency. By now you may have been talked to on another disc about dual agency, but let me explain some things to you to make sure that this is covered. First, there are 4 kinds of agency relationship you can have with a consumer, right? List them. They are single agent. They are transaction broker. They are disclosed dual agent, and they are sub-agent. Sub-agency. At Realty South, we don't offer sub-agency, and most people don't offer sub-agency anymore because that's passé. We don't want the liability of it. Now, the next question then is, do you personally, as an agent, offer all 4 types of agency relationship? Now, do you have to? That's a decision. You don't have to do that. You might make the decision that you will only offer. You might make a decision you'll only work with a buyer if they will let you be a buyer's broker, have a single agency relationship with a buyer. Maybe you want them to be loyal to you, and you're going to reciprocate that loyalty. Other folks may have reasons they want to work with people only as a transaction broker, but you make that decision. You don't have to offer all 4 types, and you don't have to offer the same thing every time. But I'm thinking there's some decisions you need to make, and you will make as you progress in the business, and that may be one. Let's say that, let me ask another question. How does your agency relationship change when you offer dual agency? Well, let me explain. If I list the house, at Realty South, our listing agreement has spelled out that we are the seller's agent. We are a single agent for the seller. We do not do transaction brokerage on a listing. So I'm a single agent for the seller. How does my agency relationship change when we offer dual agency? All right. If the way we do it at Realty South, it differs very, very little. If you read our agency paperwork, I don't have it before me, but going from memory, it says that in the event of dual agency, all duties of your agent remain the same as in single agency, except for the duty of confidentiality. What that means is, if I'm listing the house and somebody from my company brings me an offer, I'm going to treat that, work that offer the same way as if brand X was bringing me that offer, except for the duty of confidentiality. Now, how could there be a confidentiality issue? Well, one example is, let's say that William and I are sitting, are both at the copy machine. He's waiting for me to get done, and he sees that I'm copying down I'm copying a contract that I got yesterday on the house at 123 Main Street. And he knows, maybe from looking, maybe I've said something, that the seller took, $200,000 for that property. And then the next day the sale falls through for some reason. The day after that, William gets a buyer, and he shows him this house. He cannot tell that buyer that he knows that the seller previously took $200,000. That's confidential information. He cannot reveal that information. It's very rare that would happen, but if he knows it through something like that, probably from being in the same office, he cannot reveal that information to a buyer. That's confidential. In reality, William cannot reveal information that he knows because of confidentiality. But somebody from brand X cannot reveal information that they never knew either. So the working relationship is still pretty much the same as a co-op transaction with somebody from another company. Okay, in the eyes of license law, does license law differentiate between a two-person dual agency and a single-person dual agency? The answer is no. Alabama license law sees a co-op, if William and I co-op, in the eyes of license law, that is the same as if I have the listing and I pick up the buyer. Now, that may be the same in the eyes of the law. Is there any difference in real life? Think about it a minute. I think the answer is yes. Let's say Well, I just tell you, I was making this, discussing this, making a point with our lawyer, rewriting a contract a few years back, and I said there is no distinction in license law between one person and two agent dual agency. He says, yeah, Jim, there's not. But I guarantee you, if we have a problem and I get before a jury, I can make sure they understand there's a difference, and it's like this. Let's pretend. Let me go back before in dual. I think I made the point in a co-op dual agency that if William brings me an offer, I'm going to try to get more money out of him, and he's going to try to get my seller to sell the house for a smaller price. He's going to try to get less out of me. I hope I said that right. Now, we go at each other hammer and tong the same way as if I'm co-oping the sale with an agent at Brand X. Okay, let's do another scenario though. Let's say I'm sitting in an open house, and a buyer likes it, comes in, sees a house, walks around, likes it, and wants to make an offer. What do I do? Well, I want to be clear. The first thing we always need to do is you recad the customer. You explain what the types of agency are in Alabama. And again, you explain to them what their choices are. And by the way, if anybody ever picks sub-agency, you've done pretty much a poor job in explaining it, because I describe it this way. I tell an agent, I can be a single agent. I can be a buyer's broker. I can represent you and try to help you get the best deal. Or I can be a neutral transaction broker, and I won't be on either side. I can be a dual agency, be on both sides. Or I can be a sub-agent and try to help the seller get the most money out of you possible. It makes no sense that they would pick sub-agency. But the same question again. Do you offer them every type of agency relationship? Why or why not? I'm going to say no. The question you'll have to decide, this is your listing now. You're sitting in your open house. You're the listing agent. Do you offer them transaction brokerage, or do you offer them dual agency? You cannot offer them single agency. So if you offer them agency at all, you say, I will work with you as a buyer's agent. Now, my question would be, do you think it is better to be a buyer's agent or a transaction broker with this buyer? I wish I could look you in the eye and say why or why not, have a discussion on it. The answer, though, is, remember, this is a risk management class. The answer is, the smart move is from a risk management perspective, is to offer transaction brokerage to this buyer. Why? Well, in the example I gave a minute or two ago, I said, let's say William writes up an offer on my $250,000 listing. And his buyer says, look, I'm going to offer him $220,000, but I don't want you to tell him, because I'll pay full price if I have to. Does William tell me his people will pay full price even though they're offering $220,000? Of course not. He keeps that quiet. All right? He brings me the offer, and I see $220,000. And man, I'm excited about that, because my seller was about to reduce it to $220,000 or maybe $225,000. And I know we got the makings of a deal here. Do I tell William that? No. My seller may have... He keeps a secret from me, and I keep a secret from him. That's the way it works in a co-op situation a lot of the time, and in a dual agency situation a lot of the time. The problem is when his buyer walks in without him, walks into my open house, and I've offered dual agency, and then he tells me he wants to buy the house regardless, but he's going to start at $220,000. Now I've got a problem. I can't keep a secret from myself. I've either kept the buyer's secret from the seller, or I've kept the seller's secret from the buyer, but you cannot offer the same level of service to both parties. And that's where that's where a jury understands it. So the smart move from a risk management standpoint is to offer the buyer transaction brokerage and tell them that you're going to you will work with them and help them. You will be honest, but let me be clear that I represent the seller, and if you tell me you're going to offer one price but are willing to pay more, well, first of all, don't tell me if you're going to offer less than you're willing to pay. You keep that to yourself. I can do everything for you. I can help you get the house, but I can't keep a secret from the seller. If you can explain that to a buyer, if you can look them in the eye without flinching and directness and honesty, that's going to fly. I know firsthand that will work. It's like, but in sales, anything that's a problem here for you, if it's a problem in these 4 inches here, then it will be a problem there at the table. It will be a problem in the street, and the people will sense that and will ask for another agent, get up and leave, whatever, say, well, never mind. Now, I don't want you to lose a sale. I'm going to try to finish on that about losing the sale, but this is a risk management class. I'm going to teach this first. Presentation is ever, this back to salesmanship here just for a second. Presentation and confidence and being comfortable, professional, in command is going to make a difference here too. It's just like you doctor. Let's say you need to go in for an operation, and they're rolling you in there, and your doctor comes out and visits you on the gurney, but he's, his hands are clammy, kind of sweating and nervous and twitching. He said, "Well, Jim, where do you want me to cut to take out that appendix?" I mean, it's gonna. Well, Jim doesn't wear a bikini, but if I do it here, it won't look as good. But maybe if I could do it back here, or would you like for me to do it someplace else? A guy who has no confidence and lets you make decisions like that is hesitant, is sending a signal that he is not comfortable or in command. And if it was me, I'd get off the gurney and run. Same thing with an agent who is embarrassed and hesitant about saying their agency relationship is with the seller, and that I will represent you and I'll be honest with you and I'll help you, but I won't keep your secrets. You've got to be able to be direct like that. Same way with my wife hates this illustration, but it's same way with her trip to the OBGYN. Now, a lady goes into the OBGYN and the doctor says, "Go in there, take off your skirt, sit on the table, I'll be in there in a little while." And she does it. It's a professional, that's one thing. But if the doctor came in and had a funny look in his eye, maybe gin on his breath, and says, "Hey, wait and take off your clothes, wait in that room, I'll be in there in a little while," that's the same as being a hesitant, timid, scared, unconfident salesperson. She's going to get up and get out of there and find another doctor. So how you present it and your comfort in presenting it is paramount. If you can't do it the right way, if you can't do it with confidence, knowing that you're doing okay, then I'm going to tell you, maybe I don't want you to lose a sale. But I will tell you, you're taking on more risk when you do the dual agency as a single agent, if you're doing the dual agency on a MEOP. Our forms allow us to act differently than the boilerplate forms that are taught in most of the schools. Again, what's taught typically in dual agency in most schools is that you become like two transaction brokers. Neither you nor the other agent on the other side can advocate for their client's interest. You can't go tell them, "Well, you can't help them get the house for lower. You can't help them sell the house for more," because you're supposed to become neutral. I don't think that's in the public's interest. I think they want you to act as the way our paperwork describes. Last, I would say, please take your agency training within Realty South, because we've had agents go to other sources and be told outright what we're doing is illegal. We've had it lawyered up. By heavens, we paid more for lawyers than anybody else and any other realtor in Alabama. But I think you need to get your training here where the people understand it. The reason why it's important, let's say this. If being a dual agent was just as safe as being a single agent or a transaction broker, then you would figure that the number of lawsuits involving dual agents are just as small as a fraction of the transactions. Let me put it another way. If I get to MEOP as a dual agent 1 out of every 100 sales, then the likelihood is, if it's a risk-neutral thing, then 1 out of every 100 lawsuits would be a dual agency, MEOP. What we have found, though, is that it's not that way. It's been as high as like 1 out of every 3. And so the reason for that is one lawyer says, even assuming appropriate disclosures are made, if the buyers discover something wrong with the house after the purchase, and they will, they're more likely to file a complaint than if they had separate representation. This is from a Seattle lawyer. That's because they're more likely to question whether they were responded adequately. And you're in a very difficult position when you're trying to wear two hats. And that's another risk management principle I need to get across. Anytime you're trying to wear two hats in a transaction, you are at risk. We don't let our agents sell their own residences anymore. They're wearing two hats in that transaction. It's risky. There's nothing more difficult than being the seller and the agent. I tried it one time. It's awful.